Hello there, Qckslvrslash here, and today we have a video courtesy of HMang. He's a fellow OP gaming clanmate, and he sent me this one, and he said not to focus so much on his play, but the play of his team. So we're gonna have to see what exactly he meant by that, and just kind of witness it as he did. So, you know, rather than like most times where ahead of the fact I watch the game through once or twice to really get a solid idea of what's going on, I'm watching this one virgin to really just kind of be able to react in the moment, and this is going to be maybe the kickoff of a new series that I'm wanting to do, and it's going to be surrounded and talking about the tactics of the game, both as a ship and as a team, because there's definitely some shortcomings that some people have, and we all have our places that we can get stronger, but the only way we can improve is by sharing it. And if I say something that makes no sense and you completely disagree with me, I want to hear about it in the comments, because, you know, as much as I started this channel to share my experience and to try to help others, I definitely still need a lot of help myself. I know that, I respect that, and ultimately I'm willing to learn. So, off the start, things aren't looking too crazy to me. You know, good contingent up at Charlie, not a lot of chance of taking Alpha based on where ships spawn, so they seem to be consolidating up in the C area with the intent of pushing into B and C. And this looks like it's going to work pretty well. The enemy team's not really come up to contest C, so they can group up just north of B here and kind of push through as, you know, just a solid unit. And, well, right away, I can see some problems arising. The first one is you've got a DD separated from the team. Now, this can be good if he's in a situation where you can cross torpedo where the main fight is going to occur. And to me, it's going to happen at B. You can get one group here, one group here. They're going to be lobbing at each other in the smoke. So if you could have this destroyer kind of right in this area, throwing torpedoes through that group, I really think that's the best situation. So if you find yourself alone on a flank like this, don't try to drive down and squeeze. Like, work the open area of the water. There's no destroyer, you never want to get run down, and it looks like that cruiser is doing a good job of that. And, well, the next thing, look at all those destroyers in the center of B. Thankfully, that Z-46 managed to ram a Shimikaze, taking out a very deadly destroyer from the game. And, you know, if you ever find yourself in a no-win situation, the best thing you can do is make sure something comes down with you. Now, this doesn't mean if you've got full hit points and another ship has 2,000 hit points, you ram them, because that's not an equal exchange. But if you're on 3,000 hit points and about to die, and you can ram into something that's pretty much on full health, that is a very good exchange, and, you know, it's a good trade, 1 for 1, but you took a lot more health with you. And then the other thing that worries me right now is this battleship here. It kind of turned at the start and just started driving away. You know, the team has taken their time to consolidate. There's one BB sitting on the north side of the island here, not being effective. And let me just pump the map up. When you start looking at ways to push into a point, you really want crossfire. You don't want ships to be able to kind of go nose in at your entire fleet. So you've got Mang, a couple destroyers, and these cruisers back here kind of driving in, but you've got one battleship who's turning around completely out of the fight, the Yamato, and yeah, he's hurt. He's flooding. I don't know what he was thinking when he turned in that channel, but he's thrown himself away. This Bismarck here, who's turned, ran aground, his guns aren't being effective, And you've got a North Carolina and a Zhao in a very awkward position to poke. And a lot of it comes down to this island's just too tall to try to sit behind. So they're turning, they're driving that way, and what it's doing is two things. It's one, yeah, Mang is kind of going to be screwed. You can see that happening. He charged in, I think believing this North Carolina and Zhao were going to come in with him. And, I mean, thankfully the two destroyers have come, but the issue the destroyers face is they're now getting into really close proximity to the enemy team. And, you know, fortunately when you look at the enemy team, there's no radar left. So at least there's that. You're not going to get detected. But this Kagero, rather than continuing forward into the gearing smoke, or maybe trying to help Mang with the smoke, has just kind of stopped. You know, in a situation like this, momentum is your friend. And as much as it sucks and he's taking a beating, H-Mang is doing a good job of just continuing to close because, well, everyone knows the Tirpitz's torpedoes. So if he can get into kill range, you know, he can at least try to trade. And, well, that's going great until that Shimakaze appears because, well, the Shima is just going to be able to lay some torpedoes into him and ultimately finishes him off. So we're now left with the enemy team. He got his torpedoes off. That's great. He's going to get, what, maybe three? A couple floods. So right now, you want that Bismarck in North Carolina to be your main target. And, well, the reason's pretty simple. They've both burned their damage control. You can see the Bismarck is actively flooding. So these ships that all doubled back, they really needed to get into the fight. And this can be a very frustrating situation. You can see how well the enemy team has done. They stuck together and they've kind of just pushed through. That Kagero is almost dead. The Zhao is almost dead. The Atago is going to be dead soon. You know, this Garing's doing a good job staying in his smoke and getting torpedoes off, but the Baltimore and Tirpitz, who are sitting way back, they might be getting damage in, but they're both at full health. And as nice as it can be to sit on full health for the whole game, ultimately the best way to win any battle is to divide the hit points up, to take the beating as a group. Because if no one person can get focused down, then, well, no one dies, and you ultimately have more guns. As you slowly get focused down, things can go poorly. And, you know, things are starting to look like they're working out for H-Mang's team. The Bismarck has come around the corner, catches this North Carolina off guard. The Baltimore and Tirpitz are firing. You know, things look to be turning around. I still wish that North Carolina would close. You know, you really do need to stay tightly grouped up. And unfortunately, this Gearing, who did a lot of work from that smoke, fired a lot of torpedoes off, you know, got a couple kills on some very big targets, including the Yamato, well, he's going to be dead. He's all alone. You know, he's got the Hydro up, but, or sorry, the smoke, but things could see where he was, and the North Carolina lands the killing shot. So the enemy team is now starting to claw things back. The Bismarck's in the cap, probably has a number of the cap points, but it looks like he's about to leave. And, you know, one of the new features that Wargaming added is that little timer at the bottom. It tells you exactly how many seconds till you cap. Now obviously this changes if someone gets hit or anything like that, but it's very important to pay attention to, because ultimately what's happened is the Bismarck drove out, you know, probably 4 or 5 seconds from capture, so they still don't have Bravo. They're not closing that points lead. The Kagero doesn't have a lot that he can do in this battle, and this Baltimore is just slowly kind of advancing. You know, and this North Carolina, he's run off all alone, and, well, there he goes. Had he been down here right with the Bismarck, they would have had Bravo sooner. That North Carolina would have been dead sooner, and, you know, I really do believe the game would probably be over already. Unfortunately, it isn't. Now, things look good. And this is a very dangerous point in the battle, is when you kind of go, yeah, we've got the lead, we can win this, because that's when a lot of poor decisions get made. The Bismarck is driving off alone. We still have a Tirpitz who has kind of sat at the back of the map the whole game, and you know, I can understand the desire because, well, you're a tier 8 in a tier 10 battle. It's scary, but the Tirpitz can take a beating, it can do some damage, and it's got the torpedoes as the last ditch. You know, case in point, Mang managed 92,000 damage that battle. You know, 1.5 times his ship's hit points he managed to put out. And because they're spread out, this Ibuki really has free reign on this Bismarck. And, you know, the Japanese destroyers are very good at one thing, and that's kiting and just doing HE damage. Meanwhile, to the south, we do have a Minotaur that's somewhere. But where? And that's not known, but you can see his torpedoes connect with the Tirpitz. And the Tirpitz kind of just keeps driving, trying to run him down. And it's just not gonna happen. The Ibuki on the enemy team is doing a good job. You can see the Bismarck is burning. And I think everyone can kind of see the direction this game might be headed. The Ibuki's just slowly stacking the damage up. And that's, you know, how these situations get out of hand. That Bismarck had a lot of hit points. But it can be hard to hit a quick maneuvering cruiser at range. And he does land a big hit there, but he's also got torpedoes to deal with right now. And fortunately he dodges them, but there's still an unknown Minotaur in the south. He finally gets spotted, and, well, I think it was this Kagro that is doing the spotting. The Baltimore is there to shoot, the Tirpitz is there, and I just pray this Kagro doesn't make the mistake. If he shoots his guns and gets detected, he is dead. No ifs, ands, or buts. And, well, that's not going to go well. Meanwhile, in the north, the Bismarck continues to get worked down by that Ibuki. Finally finishes him off, but it looks like he's flooding. You know, one of the torpedoes is missing from this spread. You can see he's trying to repair through a flood, but the health is running away. And, you know, watching it, kind of doing the tick math in my head, he's dead. So now it all comes down to 2 versus 1. Because in the meantime, the Tirpitz got finished off by the Minotaur. And you like to think that, you know, this is a winnable situation, but then the Kagro goes and gets spotted. And my god, that's just painful. All this Kagro had to do was stay well out of detection, go over to A, cap it. They probably win the battle. The Baltimore can just run away, and they still win. Even now, all the Baltimore has to do is run away. And, well, let's jump down to this Balti. He's so focused on putting damage out that he's given himself up. Sure, they've got the points lead. 200 points. Drive away, disappear, and you win. You know, even with your whole team evaporating like that, chasing down 2 targets, they still have the win here. You can see a bunch of people, including Mang, in chat just asking him to turn and run. You know, the Minotaur versus a Baltimore is not a fair fight. The Minotaur versus a Des Moines, that would be one thing, because that comes down to the play. But the Baltimore, in its current state, which this is a .601 patch prior to the buff, just doesn't stand a chance against the Minotaur. And, you know, I like to think his head is in the right place. He's trying to go for A. He's trying to get a cap. Maybe that'll help. But he's put himself in the open. If he had just driven straight north, that Minotaur couldn't have run him down. And now he's just sitting side on. So this is another big thing. Even right now, if he just turned straight away, he's got a chance at surviving. But he's just sitting pretty much perfectly broadside. And he's been pretty lucky that the Minotaur hasn't really hit him that hard yet. And, you know, maybe the Minotaur's aim's not that great. But with a rate of fire like that, eventually he's going to dial you in. So now that he's made it to A, there's kind of a couple things to consider. Is the Minotaur going to go for B and maybe C and just try to reverse the tables? I doubt it. 3 minutes left. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So, you know, all the Baltimore has to do is stay vanished and they win. But he could have done the same thing 5 minutes ago and been so much safer. By exposing himself to that, you know, he potentially kind of turned this game over from what should have been a secure win. And this isn't about player shaming or anything like that. Everyone kind of needs to learn. But at a late stage like this, if you're ever in a game and your team is just, everyone is begging you to do something, please consider it. Because now you're going to see what happens to a Baltimore who is 7 kilometers away from a Minotaur, side on. And just look at the hit points vanish. And these are the games that hurt the most. This is the time it can be hard to stay positive, to stay kind of polite. Because you had it in the bag. You had it in the bag when it was 4-on-2. Even when it was 1-on-1. And what hurts even more is if you watched it at the end there, they got to 998 points. The Minotaur almost didn't manage to kill that Baltimore in time, despite the Baltimore doing absolutely nothing to try to preserve the win. And part of me thinks he felt it was just a guaranteed win, so he was going for damage. But when it's 1-on-1, you know if you die, you lose. Why would you put yourself in that fight? A Baltimore versus a Minotaur is not a fair fight. The Minotaur just has too many more advantages because it's a higher tier. And he always has that smoke to fall back on too, should you start to do damage to him. Just disappointing to see a game turn out like that. And this one wasn't as much about H-Mang's performance. He got 390,000 credits, 92,000 damage. He died a little early, and it's one of those ones where you wish H-Mang survived, because he would have just sailed away. But he got caught out alone at a cap and, paid the price. Fortunately, he did get some damage in, and you can see even then, middle of the team, just over 1,000 experience on a loss is very respectable. Nothing to be ashamed about there. Beat some players on the enemy team, but just that Baltimore and the team in general, like I said, when it was 4-on-2, you just had to run and it was a win. At any point, if that Baltimore had just turned and sailed away, even if the Minotaur chased him, the Minotaur wouldn't have had the chance to do the damage. He could have stayed hugged up against that island at the end. Instead, he kind of sailed into the middle of the cap. Just a lot of decisions that really kind of cost the game. And that's kind of what this replay is about. And I'm going to try to find some others where I can just put in some good teaching points about how to hang on for a win at the end of a game, or make some wise decisions at different points in the game to maximize your chances of winning. Anyways, I hope this was informative. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a thumbs up or subscribing to the channel. And as always, I'm Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you guys later.